Thank you for joining me this evening for week 12, the final lecture of series 1. It's called the Ascension Formula. So I'm your host this evening. I'm David Little, Swami Murti Saraswati, and tonight's talk is on the Ascension Formula, the name of this series, but the final talk of this series tonight. The Ascension Formula, the bridge between physiology and light. Series 1, final live stream lecture 13. Opening. Tonight we complete Series 1. 12 weeks of structure, science, physiology, and developmental architecture have brought us to this point. Everything we have covered, from coherence to fascia to cerebrospinal fluid to subtle field physiology, has been preparing the ground for this final transmission. Tonight's lecture is the bridge between physiology and light, the bridge between matter state and field state, the bridge between the human system as we know it and the human system as it becomes one. The purpose of the Ascension Formula. The Ascension Formula exists for one reason: to show that the ancient definitions of ascent, luminosity, and awakening are not mystical events. They are structural, measurable, physiological processes. It is the unifying mechanism that connects the membranes of the brain, the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, the conductivity of fascia, the harmonics of breath, the dynamics of subtle field physiology, and the physics of coherence and collapse. It reveals that physiology and light are not separate domains, they are two expressions of the same developmental process. 2. The formula as a structural mechanism. When the cerebrospinal fluid begins to move with greater amplitude, when the membranes of the brain become more elastic and responsive, when the fascia becomes more conductive, the entire system enters a higher state of coherence. This coherence is not a metaphor. It is not symbolic. It is not mystical. It is a measurable shift in the system's harmonic density. This is the first bridge, physiology to coherence. 3. The transition into field state. As coherence increases, bandwidth expands. As bandwidth expands, binding energy reduces. As binding energy reduces, the system becomes capable of field dominant behavior. This is the physics of the ascent. This is the physics of the ancient descriptions of luminosity. This is the physics of the transition from matter state to field state. This is the second bridge, coherence to light. So if anybody wanted to read more on that, they can read Field State Physics, which I published today on Zenodo. So 4, the human body as a gateway of consciousness. The dura, the arachnoid, the pia, these are not just membranes. They are the anatomical correlates of the granthis described in the yogic sciences. The cerebrospinal fluid is not just a biological fluid. It is the physical expression of bindu, the subtle luminosity described in the ancient texts. The fascia is not just connective tissue. It is the substrate of the nadi system, the conductive matrix through which subtle intelligence moves. When these systems synchronize, the human being becomes capable of a different order of perception, a different order of cognition, a different order of existence. This is the third bridge, anatomy to subtle intelligence. 5. Homo lumina, the developmental outcome. Homo lumina is not a metaphor. It is not a mythic archetype. It is a developmental stage, a human whose fascia conducts light, a human whose cerebrospinal fluid carries intelligence, a human whose membranes become permeable to subtle perception, a human whose identity stabilizes beyond the egoic frame. This is the fourth bridge, human to luminous human. And this can be expanded if anybody wants to read Homo Luminous Science. 6. The Kriya Yuga, the era of structural awakening. We are living now in the Kriya Yuga, the era where inner transformation becomes structural, where subtle processes become measurable, where awakening becomes a science. The Ascension formula is the signature equation of this era. It expresses in one line the entire architecture of the Kriya path: the flow, the release, the ascent, the luminosity, the coherence. This is the fifth bridge, tradition to science. 7. The institutional moment. This is why QEEU exists. This is why the canon was written. This is why the sciences were defined. This is why the physics was published. Tonight marks the end of Series 1, the foundational series. The series where we built the architecture, the language, the sciences, and the physics. From this point forward, the institution enters a new phase. 8. What happens after tonight? After tonight's live streams, we enter the 30-day grants window. No new creation, no new manuscripts, no expansion of the canon, only institutional execution. Next Friday night, we begin Series 2, the transmission series. This is where the formula becomes lived, embodied, and transmitted. Series 1 built the structure. Series 2 activates it. 9. Closing transmission. The Ascension formula is the bridge between physiology and light. It is the bridge between the human being and the luminous human. It is the bridge between the ancient and the modern. It is the bridge between matter and field. It is the bridge between the individual and the evolutionary. Tonight, we close the first era of QEEU. The canon is established, the physics is published, the sciences are defined, the institution is active. Series 1 is complete. Thank you, everybody, for your attention over the past 12 weeks. Next Friday night, we begin the Series 2 lectures, the transmission series. So I hope listeners have been following some of the first series and enjoyed the talks. So I'll be back next Friday and every Friday, and continuing starting next week with Series 2. Thank you.